The chill in our house had little to do with the autumn air seeping through the window frames. It was a deeper cold, the kind that settles in your bones. My name is Paula. For as long as I can remember, it's been just me and my son, Jeremy. Now, at 24, he was a man, but that evening he looked like the boy I had raised all over again, exhausted, pale, and worn down by the weight of his ambitions. "I'm not feeling so good, Mom," he mumbled, his voice rough with fatigue. "Go lie down in my room," I said, my own voice softer than I intended. "It's the warmest place in the house." He didn't argue. A few minutes later, I found him curled up on my bed. I pulled a thick blanket over his shoulders, the familiar gesture of a mother caring for her son. It felt normal, right, until I lay down beside him. The space between us was a line I hadn't realized existed until he crossed it. He shifted, moving closer, his body seeking warmth. I told myself that's all it was. Then, his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him with a gentle firmness that reminded me of when he was small and afraid of the dark. I was surprised, but a part of me melted into the comfort of the embrace. He was my son. He just needed his mother. I could feel the steady rise and fall of his chest against my back. His breathing slowed, deepening into the rhythm of sleep. The house was so quiet I could hear my own heart, a frantic, unsteady drum against the silence. It was strange, unsettling, yet in a way I couldn't explain. It was also soothing. I remained perfectly still, afraid that even the slightest movement might shatter the fragile peace. But he shifted again, pressing closer under the blanket's warmth. His arm tightened around me, and I froze. A current, electric and unfamiliar, shot through me. One part of my mind screamed to pull away, to say something, to put distance between us, but another, quieter part kept me still. The tension in the air was a physical presence, a weight I couldn't ignore, and I had no idea why it was there. Then I felt it. Something hard pressing against me from under the blanket. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tried to reason with myself, to find a logical explanation. This is Jeremy, my son. He's asleep. He doesn't realize. But the thought was a thin shield against the heat blooming between us, a confusing warmth that stirred something deep inside me. The minutes stretched into an eternity. This was just a bizarre, awkward moment. It would pass. But it didn't. Jeremy stayed close, his breath ghosting across my neck. I wanted to say something, anything to break the spell, but the words wouldn't form. I was trapped, a prisoner of my own confusion. He lifted his head, turning to look at me. His eyes, usually so sharp and focused, held a new softness, a look that both calmed and terrified me. He said nothing, but his gaze asked a question. "Are you okay?" I tried to smile, a weak attempt to restore normalcy, but it felt like a mask. His hand found mine under the covers, his fingers lacing through my own. It was such a small, almost absent-minded gesture, but every point of contact felt like a brand, awakening a feeling I couldn't name and couldn't ignore. My breathing hitched, and I prayed he couldn't feel how fast my heart was beating. He was my son. But as we lay there, tangled in silence, my mind swirled with thoughts that felt forbidden, impossible to shake. This closeness felt deeper than a mother's comfort. It was a confusing, magnetic pull that left me paralyzed. He seemed to drift back toward sleep, his eyes closing again, but then his hand began a slow, deliberate journey up my arm. A shiver traced its path. His eyes snapped open, locking with mine. There was a question in them now, clear and undeniable. He was asking if I felt it too. "Jeremy," I whispered, his name a fragile sound in the charged air. I wanted him to stop, to let me go, but my body wouldn't obey. The tension was a storm brewing in the confines of my bedroom. He moved closer, his face just inches from mine. My mind spiraled, caught between my duty as a mother and the strange, unnerving desire that was rising from a place I never knew existed. I held my breath, and the world outside that bed faded to nothing. There was only this moment. His hand moved to my shoulder, a gentle anchor in the chaos. He brushed a stray strand of hair from my cheek. The gesture was so simple, so tender, it broke through my defenses and pierced my heart. I saw the faint scar above his eyebrow, the soft curve of his jaw, the vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored my own. He was just as lost as I was. Then, as suddenly as it began, he pulled back. A nervous laugh escaped his lips, shattering the trance. "Sorry, Mom," he said, his voice strained. He wouldn't meet my eyes, but I saw the blush creeping up his neck. "I didn't mean to." The words hung between us. I wanted to tell him it was okay, but I didn't know if that was true. For the first time, I felt profoundly uneasy with my own son. Reaching out, I placed a hand on his arm. "It's okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It's just been the two of us for so long. Maybe we're both a little lost." He nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes. Just then, the doorbell rang, a shrill, violent sound that jolted us back to reality. The connection between us snapped. I scrambled out of bed, my heart still pounding, grateful for the interruption. It was our neighbor, Paul. His friendly smile was a welcome sight, a beacon of normalcy, but his gaze lingered on me, and I realized the strange energy of the bedroom was still clinging to me like a scent. "Hi, Paula," he said. "I noticed the lights were on and thought I'd check in. It's getting cold out there." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thanks, Paul," I managed, forcing a smile. "The house is a bit cold, actually." As he stepped inside, I saw Jeremy watching from the hallway, his expression unreadable. But as Paul made small talk while looking at the heater, I caught something in Jeremy's eyes, a flash of possessiveness, of jealousy, that he quickly masked. It sent another shiver down my spine. The room felt charged with a new kind of tension, my awareness of Jeremy a constant humming frequency in the background. "All right, call me if you need anything else," Paul said, finally turning to leave. The moment the door closed, the silence rushed back in, heavier than before. I turned to face my son. "You okay?" I asked. He shrugged, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Fine. Just didn't expect him to show up?" Before I could say more, he walked past me and went to his room, the soft click of his door closing behind him. I stood alone in the hallway, caught in a strange mix of relief and a deep, aching sense that nothing would ever be the same. Later, there was a soft knock on my door. It was Jeremy. He sat on the edge of the bed, refusing to look at me. "Mom," he began, his voice a whisper. "I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry if I made things weird." "Jeremy, it's okay," I said, taking his hand. "It's been just us for so long. Things can get confusing." "But it feels different," he admitted, finally looking up at me, his eyes filled with a terrifying honesty. I took a deep breath. "Maybe we just need to take a step back. We need space to figure this out." He nodded, but then he rested his head on my shoulder, a gesture from his childhood that now felt loaded with new meaning. My heart ached. I wrapped an arm around him, holding him in a way that was both comforting and dangerous. We sat there, clinging to each other in the quiet darkness. But just as a fragile peace began to settle, another knock echoed through the house. It was firm, urgent. We both jumped. I went to the door and found Paul standing there again, his brow furrowed with concern. "Paula, sorry," he said. You seemed off earlier. Are you sure everything's okay?" I glanced back at Jeremy, who stood like a shadow in the room behind me, his eyes burning into us. "We're fine, Paul. Thank you." After he left, I closed the door, my hand trembling. Jeremy walked slowly towards me, stopping just a breath away. The air crackled. He looked like he was at war with himself. "Maybe we shouldn't rush this," he said, his voice shaking. "Maybe we need time." I could only nod, my heart torn between fear and a feeling I refused to name. "You're right. We both need to think." He returned to his room, leaving me on the edge of a precipice we had discovered together. It wasn't an ending, but the beginning of something undefined and terrifying. And I had no idea what the future held for us.